salutations. My name is Joshua. Greetings. My name is Joshua Free. Greetings. My name is Joshua Free, and this is episode 10 of Mardukite TV Season 4. Greetings. My name is Joshua Free. Greetings and salutations. My name is Joshua Free. Greetings. My name is Joshua Free, and we are resuming Mardukite TV Season 4. In this season, we have been talking about books, and lots of books. I don't plan to slow down any there. Hi there, my name is Joshua Free. Greetings, my name is Joshua Free.
Greetings to viewers, people of Earth and beyond. We can't really be sure who and how far YouTube's been reaching these days. So as many of you know, my name is Joshua Free. I'm the founder, director of modern Mardukite movement, Mardukite Babylon, developer of Necronomicon, the Illuminating Bible. Well, greetings, here we are back, Borsippa headquarters, the Mardukite operations, and it is April 11th, and I got a few things to talk to you about before I turn you over to the master course. We'll go into lecture 4 of the master course. Probably not going to do all of the lectures as part of these videos. At this going rate, it's been another 2 weeks since I've been up on here. And at this rate, it would take like 2 years to get through all 48 lectures. So I guess I'm gonna have to pick and choose a little bit once we start getting into it. But I figure we start off with the basics. We'll go into number 4. So two releases coming up here very shortly. I talked to you a bit in a previous episode about Crystal Clear. We have the new edition, second edition of Crystal Clear, Handbook for Seekers, being released on Beltane, April 30th. And it's already available for pre-order now. So that will now become our standard for Crystal Clear. The Premier Edition will probably still be available for quite some time. But this new revision is a little more concise, a little bit easier to read. For those that aren't as big of readers, the information is basically still the same. It's just how it's being presented. The other big news, this has been a long time coming. This was actually expected to come out last August, and here we are in April. It's The Way of the Wizard, and that is the official title now for Liber 3 or Liber 3E. And this is the transition title, the transition book, the transition work for moving from grade 4 into grade 5. So there's going to be some that probably aren't ready for this caliber of material, but that's what we're going to be kind of launching off from for grade 5. So it's called The Way of the Wizard. It's called Utilitarian Systemology, a New Ethic for Metahumans, or New Metahuman Ethic. And that will also be released on Beltane April 30th, and I don't have any copies yet. We just got it sent off to the printers and whatnot, so I don't have any copies yet. But here, let me bridge you over to a little screen here. We'll take a look at the covers of those two titles. So as you can see, they got some nice artwork that goes along with the other Academy editions. These are 5" by 8" hardcovers, dust jacketed for you. Now, what else we got going on here? We've got a new edition of the Imaginomicon. Much like Crystal Clear was revised, we have a new edition of the Imaginomicon to go with the Academy editions, and that will be the second edition of the Imaginomicon. So we've got a second edition of Crystal Clear coming out on Beltane. The second edition of the Imaginomicon will most likely be available for purchase sometime in mid-May. At the same time, I talked to you about us putting out the Barrett Researches, which is like basically a Druid source book, an Academy edition of that. It's going to actually be released as Draconomicon Volume 2. So for those of you that are really interested in the Barrett work, and Druidism, and the Dragon Legacy, and so on and so forth, it's going to basically companion that, and we're going to try and design it so that it matches that style. And so both of those should be available in probably like mid-May. And then also this is probably what I get most of my mail about in the last 3 years. As some of you will remember, 3 years ago, we released a limited edition of the Anunnaki Tarot, which was a smaller, portable, pocket-sized deck. It was intended to they were basically business-sized cards. They weren't printed by a business card company, but that was the size I was shooting for, because as a major arcana deck, they actually fit into these leather business card holder pouches really well. And I thought that would be a really cool idea, especially since we were doing it limited edition. They came with numbered certificates. The new edition, I've taken everything, all the letters and all the requests into account. So I'm going to be releasing a revised edition of the Anunnaki Tarot guidebook in hardcover. It's going to be kind of along the same stylings as the complete book of Magick, complete book of Marduk, and boy, everybody just blowing me up today. And so basically, revising that, so a second edition of the Anunnaki Tarot book in hardcover, in addition to releasing the Major Arcana deck as an unlimited, larger size, the standard, what you would expect, a cardboard flip top tuck box, and such, and I would expect that to be probably around the summer solstice in June. The book will be available as usual, distributed through normal channels. The card deck you will have to get from the Mardukite offices, whether it's through personal arrangement or eBay, for those that don't know us as well or as personally. That will satisfy a lot of the requests that I've been getting at the office. People have been asking, are we going to bring the decks back? Is the book going to be revised? Will the cards be larger? And so forth, and more economical, of course, because we won't be handling them as much. We won't be dealing with it as a limited edition, so we're looking forward to that. Now, in one of the previous episodes, I kind of spotlighted the assistant work of one of our publications officers, James Thomas, that did the editing and the selections of the articles that you would find in The Way into the Future. Another one of our members that's done some incredible work for us, his name is David Ziebert, and I'm not even going to try to butcher the French on this. We have, and people ask, why is French the only language that the books are being simultaneously translated into? Well, David Ziebert has been on the Council of Nabu for over a decade. And so this is somebody that we know and we trust to do translation work for in their native Canadian language of French. It's not something that we commission random people to do. So it's somebody that actually understands our work, somebody that's actually done work and participated in research and stuff along with us, and therefore we can trust to actually do the translations, because I can't trust people to do that kind of stuff. So in the past, they've done, we've got the New Millennium, Necronomicon, the liturgy and lore version in French, the basically the Gatekeeper's Grimoire, the Book of Marduk. Now, like I said, I'm not going to even try to tackle these in the French language, but over the years they've done several of the original titles that went into the work of the Mardukite Chamberlains. And most recently, this is the paperback. It is also available in hardcover, Le Necronomicon. This is the French edition. All of these materials all put into one volume, and so it's edited by me, Joshua Free, translated from the English by David Ziebert. You can get this if you're into French or you're into Necronomicons that have cool obscure languages or whatnot for your role playing or whatnot. So you can get this in French in paperback and now also in hardcover. There's also, and I don't have a copy with me right now, there's also a copy, an edition of the New Standard Zuist edition of the Anunnaki Bible that's available in French as well, in both paperback and hardcover. So I just wanted to kind of spotlight on that a bit, kind of show what some of our other participants are doing. So let us get into the Mardukite Master Course Lecture 4. You'll find the transcripts in the complete Mardukite Master Course, the volume here. We also plan on still, in addition to those releases coming up in the next couple months, we plan on taking each of the 4 routes that are described in here, the Magick and Mysticism, Zuism the Dragon Legacy, the Mesopotamian Mystery Tradition, and Mardukite Systemology Grade 3, and breaking the transcripts and supporting information from this book down into 4 volumes, which is kind of actually backwards from what we normally do. Usually we take kind of like the French work, we take a series of installments and put them into a large hardcover. This was originally released as a large hardcover, and we plan on kind of breaking that down for you here soon too. So expect to see that probably later in the summer, July, August type thing. So that kind of brings you up to speed on what we're doing here at the office. Again, this is probably one of the busier times for me at the office, because this is when a lot of the setups and arrangements for our year's worth of work are situated. So let's see, that covers pretty much everything that I wanted to go over with you. Again, it's been about 2 weeks since our last episode. What I generally do is wait till there's about 120 or so views on an episode before doing the next. So if you want to see these coming out quicker, more expeditiously, aside from twice a month, we just need to get more shares, more views, and whatnot in terms of the participation of you, the viewer. It's been like a decade or such since I did a lot of like serious productions on YouTube, as far as like the Magic School, the Druid School, being an elf in a mortal body, those series and whatnot. So it's not unexpected that it's going to take some people a little bit more time to realize that we're kind of back on. I still get notes every day here. Oh, glad to see that you're back on the YouTube platform. So getting people back used to that again, it's going to take some time. But in the meantime, this is Lecture 4 of the Mardukite Master Course, still dealing with Grade 1, Route A, and the title of the lecture is Mastering Magic.
Mastering Magic. This lecture is 30 minutes long, as given by Joshua Free in September 2020. Produced by the Mardukite Academy of Systemology. All rights reserved.
We have had at our disposal now an incredible wealth of hermetic mysteries and philosophies to explore, many means of understanding the qualities of cosmic law. And so finally, here with this last lecture of the day, I want to get into a higher understanding of what it means at a master level to be dealing with the routes of magic and mysticism. Because we have to make certain we are not imposing any understanding that we have concerning this physical existence with that which is the all, or that which is infinity. Any laws that may govern what we call the alpha existence of a spiritual universe. Because really, when you take the mystical work and the psychic phenomenon and magical rituals and other such efforts of practical metaphysics, they're really only effectively workable to the extent that we have certain agreements made concerning cosmic law and the physical universe. And so here is where, again, a magician or a master level practitioner must make certain that they understand that the power of what we consider magic is the power of will. Will put forth from self, the I am, the directive force in the physical universe concerning our reality, concerning what you are experiencing. Because your point of view may be fixed here at this moment to a physical incarnation or occupying a space within this room, yet the real essence and spirit and the being of I am or self occupies this higher reality. And this cannot be dismissed no matter what level or grade we are working at. Otherwise, we might fall prey to the trappings of those individual grades, which somehow put an emphasis on the knowledge or the accumulation of the facts that will make a specific paradigm function and work. Whatever semantics is being used is acceptable. Now, we chose the word zoo to represent the life and the life force and the spirit and the self, based on a very, very ancient form of semantics, because it was the oldest written semantics that we have to work with, the oldest languages of written records. Otherwise, we have thousands of years afterwards of various interpretations of that knowledge under various guises and paradigms, all of which are explorable, all of which we can simply flatten the mystery of by exploring properly at the grade of magic and mysticism. Therefore, basically eliminating, like I say, the sense of mystery, the unknown factor, that there is anything hiding under these rocks, or that to basically eliminate what I have found to be the case in many that dwell far too long on the lunar level. It's a gambler's fallacy, that just one more pull of that lever is going to produce the result. And this is again a trapping of the grade. And so what we're dealing with is we're dealing with real gate walking in the master course and in the grades, that we're presenting the real piercing of the veils. This is not the kind of stuff you just read about in planetary grimoires, or conducting, ceremonies every full moon or whatnot. Now, these are all elements and tools that can be used to reach higher levels of realization. But one of the issues that we find is, again, this gambler's fallacy, where one more grimoire, one more magic notebook, just one more spell that can be uncovered, they're still looking for an effect from the magic to be the effect and not cause an effect. And this is the main trapping of magic and mysticism. You don't see this as much in Druidism as we move into the other half of the grade, because there the self is being put in connection with the environment more directly in nature. And nature, as we know, it seems to be there almost as the permanency. We're not the ones, it's there when we arrive on the planet, and it's there when we go, type thing. So we're starting to move self into an environment and look at the environment. The danger there being, of course, that unless we conduct, the right words under the right type of species of tree and so on and so forth, that we can't access some mystery and so forth. We see these trappings really all along the way. Anything that moves the emphasis away from, of course, what we've referred to as self-honesty, and being in a point of self-awareness that is not restricted to one or another ideal or paradigm or restriction. Because those parameters, now you can freely decide to do whatever you choose to do, but how can it be a free decision while those parameters are still in place? There's things you can freely decide not to do, but the reactivity concerning what is actually within the parameters is what's going to define that. As I say, the uppermost limit of what we are doing with the master course is really making a more able and creative individual. And of course, as I say, that's limited to the extent of one's imagination, one's ability to imagine or to call to mind, which of course means to summon up a mental image and actually be able to confront it and to be okay with it. There's a lot of things that people are either conditioned or have conditioned themselves to not want to look at. And so with magic and mysticism, that's one of the first aspects of the lunar veil, is being able to suddenly have a much more wider encompassing view, regardless of how that's being processed or what semantics are being used to represent it. Now, we're mostly concerned with pretty much the highest level that we can reach in using these fundamentals, but sometimes that is too steep of a gradient to throw at an individual, to throw them, for example, the Systemology Handbook or Tablets of Destiny, if they don't necessarily have any foundation on which to place that information, that understanding. It kind of comes out of the blue then all of a sudden, and it doesn't seem very real, and so it doesn't seem very accessible, and they're less likely to reach for it and what it represents and to actually effectively employ it. So when we represent the grades, for example, grade 1 with magic and mysticism, we're not really enforcing that all Mardukite Zuists, for example, or all systemologists, or everyone that comes through the Mardukite Academy is required to study and practice magic and mysticism as relayed in Route 1. Now, if you are looking for a master level understanding, if you want to be certified as an instructor, you want to be a master Mardukite in terms of just the significance of what it represents as a finite fixed point that we've established for what realizations and ability and knowledge and so forth are accessible within these 3 grades, well then yeah, we want you to have a full working understanding of magical and occult semantics as they've applied for the last 2,500 years, because they crop up here and there. And also to eliminate, like I say, the mystery. Because when we suddenly start talking about the less ritualistic, occult, and rigid practices from the older, like grade 2 Mesopotamian tradition, we still see correspondences and we see many procedures, but a much more fluid relationship with not only the universe and the cosmos. And a person should be able to differentiate between the holy magics as they were relayed, or the religious magics, or the practices and purposes as they're relayed in Mardukite Zuism, if they're going to use that as a quasi-religious expression in modern times. In comparison to how these facets have been explored, practiced, and laid down in the past. Because that is the working understanding that we had up until this point. Up until Systemology about a year ago, we've really only had the old works to draw from. And that's a little bit more of a shared reality than when we get to grade 3 and we're dealing with our new semantics and our new, more wider encompassing universal applications of vocabulary that encompasses not only grade 3 systemology, but applies to all of the foundational levels beneath it that have led to that understanding. Now, it would be, of course, my hope that an individual would just fall into Zuism or systemology, for example, and the practices and the processing, and basically reach farther and farther up the pathway. There's no reason that a person has to be brought back to grade 1 in order to work forward. However, as I say, this being like a reconstruction of the ancient mystery school that we're operating as the Mardukite Academy, this is an all-encompassing knowledge. And if we want a full comprehension of where things were, how things can be, where things are going, this is what we provide. To the extent that an individual is willing to reach for it, that's all we can ever provide. The enforcement and indoctrination of instruction really, here in the Mardukite Master Course, that might be applicable to instructors and masters, because we want to make sure that we're all on the same page here when we're delivering this information in the name of this movement all around the world. That there is a concise, systematized structure that we are all following, and that an individual that has gone through the Magick school at some lodge of the Mardukite Academy in Canada or France or Australia, that it's going to be comparably the same to what would be delivered, for example, here in our main offices, or to the extent that an individual is going to understand it working through the materials and listening to these original course recordings of the master course as I deliver it, which of course is a little bit different. I'm gearing these more towards a master level understanding of those that have worked through the materials or are going to be actively working through the material while listening to these courses, in lieu of the fact that I can actually deliver the course more widely this way from the source, and individuals can either pick it up on their own to study it at their own leisure at home, or as part of one of the academy lodges or schools or Zeus churches or of the Mardukite tradition that we plan to establish. And this is actually a milestone achievement for us with these master editions, because we have not been able to reach this level of duplication before, and also the wide reach of our materials. Most of our materials were originally underground. And so really what we want to do is bring people to a high level understanding, a workable understanding of the various degrees and levels and how they work together and how things came to be what they are. There's many other methods that can be used in addition to this. If an individual instructor wishes to employ their processing, if they're a pilot, or those that wish to demonstrate the teachings of processing, at least to the extent as they're related in grade 3, we're not mixing piloting procedure or any of the higher metahuman systemology into the master course. As I say, we've finally been able to reach a pinnacle point where we could draw the line of grade 3 and finally reach the goals that we had set out to achieve for that. Now, there's a lot of processing, particularly the objective processing, which involves using systemology and the relationship with the external world, that really kind of goes hand in hand with older ritual techniques. Just as I didn't create the pathway and the actual the knowledge itself, I collected and systematized it. And once I reached the extent of the paradigms in the past, reached the extent that here is what the Druid systemization is, here is Mesopotamia, here is the Western magical tradition, and so forth, it really was about what is this all adding up to, and what does this all mean, and what is the actual points that these are all trying to reach at an almost universalist level. Now, we're not taking the approach, as some have in the past, where, well, they're all correct. Or, well, they all have elements of being correct, meanwhile, well, we'll just accept them all as they are, and so on and so forth. That's all fine and good if you want to interact with people on the street and not have to engage in some kind of conflict or something of that nature because of, reactivity or emotional ties. But that really doesn't have much to do with what the actual truth of things are, which it cannot be restricted to one set of semantics or another. So at the very least, the material within these grades, the route of Magick and Mysticism, the route of Druidism, and Mesopotamia, they suggest very specific models and Kabbalahs and systematized pathways that really do form a structure that we haven't completely departed from as we move up into grade 3 systemology and well beyond. The models and scales, the zoo line, the charts, everything that we've done with our higher level work, including grade 3, is really built upon that basis, that foundation. That's why we express it the way we do. And it's not necessarily necessary, of course, as a prerequisite to understanding our systemology, because the systemology that we've developed encompasses the rest of it in a very simplistic, very forward and direct manner. However, it doesn't deal with the older semantics very much. It doesn't deal with the older cultural ideals and mythologies to a great extent. And so there are ancient Kabbalahs and forms of systematizing world trees and universes and the relationship that self has, depending on its point of view or its reference, as self, with all of these existences. Now, unfortunately, we haven't found that they're all necessarily workably effective in getting the individual to higher points of realization, higher self-actualization, actually accessing these higher veils towards what we are considering ascension, because that's an accepted term of it. But it's not so much that we are these spiritual beings that operate far and beyond this physical and what we consider beta existence. We are these alpha beings. And it's only through a matter of considerations and many lifetimes of restrictions, the solidity of beliefs, and of fixed realities that's brought us to these lower points by accumulating more and more of these false barriers, more and more of these false images we carry around, more and more stores of emotional ties and energies that have kept us from achieving the freedom that is accessible as a human spirit. And to those higher vistas, we're now considering, for example, wizard level or metahuman and actualized technician. These are terms thrown around now in the Systemology Society that pertain to grades 4 and above. And now, the whole point of this is not some raceway. The whole point of this is not, oh well, first you go through grade 1 and then we give you this little piece of paper and go through grade 2, and the whole point of that is go through grade 3, and that's not what we're trying to do. We're not trying to repeat the false intention and emphasis of former educational systems. That's not our purpose here. The grading was simply a way of actually plotting knowledge and what was actual with that knowledge and real as potential realizations at each step of the way. and what is most accessible and what is within reach. It's a lot easier to work this up on a gradient scale. And so the point is not, of course, again, to enforce that we push every single grade, but these classes of instruction do exist here for a reason. And so really to get the most, for example, from the route of Druidism, the route of Magick and Mysticism is of extraordinary benefit. And then, of course, to understand, to put grade 2 into a perspective for Western civilization to best understand, the Druid, the route of Druidry that we use sometimes as a bridge, specifically, pertains exclusively with the concept that here's Druidry as we understand it, and then when we look back into the origins of Druidry, we find ourselves in Mesopotamia. And so it is very helpful, especially given that, like, for example, a lot of the material in Merlin's Complete Book of Druidism, or that's available as Elvenomicon and Draconomicon, that material was originally used when we founded the Mardukites and what is now considered the basis for the grade 2 material. Now, there were many people that came into our fray that their first point of contact and entry point was the Necronomicon, or was the Anunnaki, or Mesopotamia. And then after working through that, they went back and they go, oh, well, yeah, this all is very good material, and I like this presentation. They go back and they look at the Druid material and they start to work their way back through the grades down to establish that foundation, simply for a greater sense of certainty. And again, to eliminate the mystery, this walking around perpetually of why, and chicken before the egg, and to actually work out enough of this to be certain that there's enough foundation to simply move forward. Now, that doesn't mean we're rushing people through the grades to move forward. It means that there is all of the certainty and foundation, everything quite accessible, as an ancient mystery tradition, to bring someone up through these grades and have them accessing more and more within their reach by standing on ledges of true knowingness and not just accepting things on faith. There's really very little here as we work through. If you have the proper understanding of what's taking place, even with all the fanciful presentations of magic and mysticism and what have you, that requires a lot of faith. What it really requires is understanding. We're not too concerned with just taking beliefs on faith, because that's a solidity of somebody else's reality. What is most important is what is within the grasp of an individual to actually experience for themselves. And to understand what is happening, what is at cause, what effects are taking place, how these relationships are being communicated. And then if they want to put a lot of colorful semantics and vocabulary onto the type of energetic exchanges taking place, or the classification of certain attributes, that's all fine and good. What we don't want to do is restrict our understanding to only these systematic patterns of magical correspondences and so forth, spirit sigils and planetary alignments. All of it is only useful and workable to as a successful path to the extent that it's carrying somebody forward. So let us not rush seekers through the grades, but one should expect I've synthesized quite a bit of material here over the course of 25 years. Now it is now accelerating, because that's how it seems to work. As more of this has come together, more of it has come together and continues to come together, and we've been able to reach much farther now than ever before, ever even conceived of, when standing at these lower ledges of reality, which seemed like incredible vistas and incredible monumental turning points, as they rightfully were. But in this instance, we're simply classifying each of those as a grade. and not treating it as anything other than what that is. And they are incredible vistas and monuments of human understanding and collected wisdom and information that can propel us forward. But much as we don't want the seeker meandering and wandering too long at lunar levels, we've also discovered the hidden, what's behind the screens of, for example, Mardukite Zuism and the ancient Babylonian and Mesopotamian tradition, the Anunnaki traditions, and the arcane tablets, what they lead to. And that ultimately led us to Systemology. And so really, one of the benefits in studying and exploring the full extent of the Mardukite Master Course is the ability to relay and understand all of these levels as it goes along, to understand the relationship, for example, that the Druids' Kabbalah or the Ladder of Lights, or the Babylonian Stargates, or the Semitic Kabbalah, or any of these paradigms, the chakras, various interpretations of selves or bodies that have been compounded or overlapped, how all of the ways that these mystical expressions have been relayed in the past can be synthesized, refined, better understood, better applied today in our systemology, but once actually looking at them for what they were and what they are, not necessarily going into systemology and saying, well, we have the zoo line and the standard model, and it all seems to work fine within this. Well, no, let's look at the everything that's led up to this point, and that even myself, I can't take full credit for creating the standard model and the zoo line and the scales that systemology is now very much accelerating its success on, because these are all very old, very commonly dispersed throughout the esoteric underground and New Age traditions and so forth, but without getting past the semantics and without having a wider view or unifying understanding, which is definitely accessible even within grade 1 material. These individuals have a tendency to just simply cling on to these individual paradigms and what their symbolism and significances had been ascribed without seeing anything further or any further applications. And this would be all fine and good had any of the former traditions that we have based our systemology on, had any of them actually reached definitively and with good ability to duplicate between apprenticeships spanning thousands of years, the type of goals that we wanted to reach with what we define as the master course or the master grades. We would have simply compounded upon those to their nth degree. And since we were not able to do that, it required developing a new next-gen or futurist understanding, which we can represent for those that need to have some sense of systematized symbolism and structure in terms of a mythology and some kind of grasp with the ancient history that we can observe as Mardukite Zuism and the ancient Mesopotamian tradition, but going much farther to establish a new systemology, a new higher understanding of all that has come before and all that could still be within Mardukite systemology. I want you to thank you now for being here today, and I hope to have you back tomorrow for a new set of lectures.